The Galactic Council's transmission crackled through every communications array on Earth, a ultimatum wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. Orla Kavanagh, captain of humanity's flagship Defiant Dawn, leaned back in her command chair and listened to the alien voices drone on about compliance, submission, and the natural order of the cosmos. All species must bow to the Council's authority, the Vrexian ambassador hissed, his reptilian features distorted on the viewscreen. Humanity will surrender its weapons, dismantle its fleet, and accept protectorate status. You have 72 hours. Orla's executive officer, Lieutenant Jackson Torres, stood beside her chair with his arms crossed. The young man's jaw was tight, his dark eyes fixed on the screen with barely contained fury. Around the bridge, her crew sat in stunned silence. When the transmission ended, Orla smiled. It wasn't a warm smile or a diplomatic one. It was the kind of smile a predator wore when it realized its prey had just made a fatal mistake. "That's cute," she said softly. Jackson turned to her, eyebrows raised. "Captain." "They think we're going to roll over." Orla stood, smoothing her uniform. "They've been bullying species across this galaxy for 3,000 years, and they think we're just another primitive race that'll fall in line." She walked to the tactical display, where dozens of Council warships appeared as red dots surrounding Earth's solar system. They have no idea what they're dealing with. Jackson moved to her side, studying the display. "We're outnumbered 50-1, ma'am. Their fleet composition includes dreadnoughts that outmass our entire navy." "On paper, yes." Orla tapped a few commands and the display shifted to show human ship positions scattered throughout the system. But the Council has spent millennia enforcing peace through intimidation. They haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. We, on the other hand, she glanced at Jackson with that same predatory smile. "We've been fighting each other for our entire history. We got very, very good at it." The lieutenant nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You have a plan." "I have several." Orla turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to Fleet Command. Operation Hornet's Nest is a go. Then patch me through to the Council fleet. Let's see if we can't educate these ancient tyrants about human nature." Minutes later, Orla stood before the viewscreen as the Vrexian ambassador's face reappeared, flanked by representatives from a dozen other Council species. The Kelthani with their crystalline bodies, the Morphids, gelatinous and translucent, the Thoros, towering and heavily armored. All of them wore expressions of smug superiority. "Captain Kavanagh," the Vrexian began, "have you contacted us to announce Earth's surrender?" "Not exactly," Orla replied, her voice pleasant. "I'm calling to give you a counteroffer. You have 1 hour to withdraw your fleet from our solar system. Leave peacefully, and we'll forget this insult ever happened." The alien delegation erupted in what could only be described as laughter, though the sounds varied wildly across species. The Vrexian's hissing wheeze was particularly grating. "You cannot be serious," a Kelthani representative chimed, its voice like crystal bells. "You have no leverage. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your fleet is minuscule. You are isolated, alone, with no allies in the galaxy." Orla nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right about the allies part. Do you know why we don't have any allies? Because every species you've encountered has been terrified into submission before they could develop independently. You find a civilization, you threaten them, they surrender, and they become part of your peaceful empire." She leaned forward. "But humans, we don't scare easy." "Bravado will not save you," the Vrexian sneered. "It's not bravado," Jackson interjected from beside Orla. "It's a warning." The ambassador's eyes narrowed. "Then we shall teach you the price of defiance. You have wasted our time. The Council fleet will." The transmission cut off as every Council ship in the system suddenly went dark. Emergency lights flickered on their bridges, backup systems struggling to compensate for the massive electronic warfare attack that had just fried their primary systems. On the defiant dawn, Orla watched as her crew executed the plan with ruthless precision. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their council counterparts, erupted from hiding positions throughout the asteroid belt, behind moons, even tucked into the rings of Saturn. They weren't trying to destroy the council fleet, not yet. They were delivering a message. Targeted strikes on all command and control nodes, Orla ordered. Disable, don't destroy. I want them to understand what just happened. Jackson coordinated the attack from the tactical station, his fingers dancing across the controls. Rail gun batteries firing, kinetic strikes impacting Council flagship shields, shields collapsing, switching to EMP torpedoes, all Council vessels losing power to weapon systems. It was over in 17 minutes. The Council's superior technology meant nothing against an enemy that fought dirty, thought creatively, and had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Humanity's ships used tactics the Council had never encountered: swarm attacks, false retreats, sacrificial drones that looked like full ships until they exploded in brilliant diversions. When communications were restored, the Vrexian ambassador's face reappeared on screen. He looked shaken, his scales pale. What did you? Let me explain something about humans, Orla said, her voice hard now. We fight. It's what we do. We fought over land, resources, ideology, religion, and sometimes just because we were bored. We've built weapons that could destroy our own planet 100 times over, and the only reason we haven't used them is because we finally got smart enough to point them outward instead of at each other. She began packing in front of the view screen, warming to her subject. Jackson watched with barely concealed pride. You want to know our secret? It's not superior technology. It's not some genetic advantage. It's that we never stop fighting, never stop adapting, never stop improving. While you've been sitting in your comfortable empire and forcing peace through threats, we've been in the trenches, the bunkers, the foxholes. We've been learning. A Thoros representative, its armor scorched from a near miss, spoke up. You would risk galactic war. The entire council will descend upon you. Let them come, Jackson said quietly. We'll teach them the same lesson. Orla held up a hand. But it won't come to that, will it? Because you're going to go back to your council and tell them the truth. Tell them that humanity isn't interested in joining your empire. We're not interested in your protection or your guidance. We're going to chart our own course. The council will never accept. The council will accept it because they don't have a choice, Orla interrupted. You came here expecting us to roll over. Instead, you got bloodied by a primitive race using technology you consider outdated. Imagine what happens when we catch up. Imagine what happens when we surpass you. She smiled again, and this time it was genuinely frightening. You don't want us as enemies, trust me on that. The Vrexian's tongue flicked nervously. Around him, the other council representatives were conferring in hushed tones. Finally, he turned back to the screen. What are your terms? Simple, you leave our system. You leave us alone to develop as we see fit, and in return, we won't come looking for you. Orla's expression softened slightly. But here's the thing, we're not unreasonable. We understand the galaxy is a dangerous place. So here's what I propose: mutual non-aggression. We won't attack council territory. You don't interfere with human expansion. And maybe, somewhere down the line, we can talk about trade, cultural exchange, maybe even friendship. But it'll be between equals, not master and servant. The delegation conferred again, longer this time. Jackson moved to stand beside Orla, speaking softly enough that only she could hear. Do you think they'll accept? They will, Orla replied. Because the alternative is a war they can't win. They know it now. We've shown them what a relatively primitive human fleet can do. They're smart enough to extrapolate what we'll be capable of in a few decades. She was right. The Vrexian ambassador returned to the screen, his expression carefully neutral. The council accepts your terms. We will withdraw our fleet. But know this, Captain Kavanagh, the galaxy will be watching humanity very closely. Good, Orla said. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you give humans a challenge instead of a chain. She nodded respectfully. Safe travels, Ambassador, and maybe next time you encounter a new species, try asking nicely instead of demanding obedience. The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, the crew erupted in cheers. Jackson extended his hand to Orla, and she shook it firmly. "That was one hell of a gamble, Captain," he said. "It was," Orla admitted. "But that's what humans do best. We gamble, we improvise, we push boundaries." The Council forgot that not every species dreams of peace and stability. Some of us dream of stars and freedom. As the Council fleet began its slow withdrawal from the solar system, Orla stood at the viewscreen, watching them go. Behind her, her crew worked to secure the system and tend to the few damaged ships from the brief engagement. "What now, ma'am?" Jackson asked. Orla's smile returned, but this time it was filled with wonder rather than menace. Now we build, we explore, we grow. The galaxy just learned that humanity can't be bullied, but they still don't know what we can achieve when we're free to reach our full potential." She turned to her XO. "Let's show them, shall we?" Jackson grinned. "With pleasure, Captain." And so humanity took its first real steps onto the galactic stage, not as subjects or servants, but as equals who had earned their place through courage, ingenuity, and the stubborn refusal to bow to anyone. The Council had warned Earth to obey, and a human captain had smiled and shown them exactly why that was never going to happen. The galaxy would never be the same.